The gleaming black Mercedes sits perfectly parked outside Le Bernardin, one of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants. Its tinted windows reflect the golden hour light. Tamika Harris, a 28-year-old elegant African-American woman with natural curls and intelligent eyes, approaches the car. She wears a stunning black dress that fits her like it was made for her, because it was. But tonight, perfection is not the goal. She peers into the darkened window, using it as a mirror. From her purse, she pulls out garish red lipstick, a shade that clashes violently with her warm brown skin. "Here goes nothing," she murmurs to her reflection. She begins applying the lipstick far beyond her lip line, creating a clownish appearance. Next comes electric blue eyeshadow, slathered from lid to brow. Weston Hale, impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, sits in the back seat reviewing documents. His angular features and intense blue eyes suggest a man accustomed to control. He glances up, annoyed by the movement outside. His irritation transforms into fascination as he watches Tamika methodically destroy what was clearly a flawless appearance. "James, what is she doing?" he asks his driver. "Appears to be. Putting on makeup, sir?" Weston leans forward, captivated despite himself. In 15 years of building his tech empire, he's never seen anything quite like this. Such deliberate self-sabotage executed with precision. Tamika steps back, examining her handiwork. She looks absolutely ridiculous. Perfect. She doesn't notice the slight shift of shadow inside the car as she turns toward the restaurant, squaring her shoulders like a soldier heading into battle. The restaurant's interior whispers wealth. Crystal chandeliers, pristine white tablecloths, servers who glide rather than walk. The maitre d' greets Tamika with barely concealed horror. "Good evening, madam. Do you have a reservation?" "Yes, under Marcus Chen." "I believe he's already here," Tamika responds sweetly, oblivious to his reaction. At a corner table, Marcus Chen, a 32-year-old handsome and well-dressed man, stands as Tamika approaches. His warm smile falters but doesn't disappear. "You must be Tamika. I'm Marcus." "Sorry, it's been quite a day," Tamika says, exaggerating a stumble. Weston watches through the restaurant's large windows as Tamika is seated. He instructs James with newfound urgency. "Cancel my dinner with the Singapore investors." "Sir, the merger depends on... I need to know who that woman is." Tamika's sabotage campaign continues. She's knocked over water, talked with her mouth full, and laughed too loudly. Yet Marcus remains remarkably patient. "Tasha mentioned you're an art curator." "That must be fascinating work," Marcus says. Despite herself, Tamika's eyes light up when Marcus mentions visiting her latest exhibition featuring contemporary African artists. "You saw Kwame Asante's installation? The way he uses mirrors to explore fractured identity through the diaspora experience." She catches herself mid-sentence, remembering her goal. "Sorry, I don't mean to bore you with art talk," she adds, deliberately knocking over salt. "Not boring at all. Actually, your passion for it is. Refreshing." Weston enters the restaurant, nodding to the maitre d', who recognizes him immediately. "Mr. Hale, we weren't expecting you tonight." "Something with a view of the corner table, please." Weston is seated with perfect sightlines to Tamika's table. He orders without looking at the menu, his attention entirely focused on the strange dinner theater unfolding before him. Tamika excused herself and went to the ladies' room. She stares at her reflection, the ridiculous makeup somehow making her natural beauty more apparent by contrast. Her phone buzzes with a text from her best friend, Tasha. "How's the date? Did Marcus pass the test?" She read the text and types back, harder than expected. "He's actually nice." She adds more blue eyeshadow with grim determination. "Stick to the plan," she tells her reflection. When Tamika returns to the table, she finds Marcus in conversation with a tall, impeccably dressed stranger. "Tamika, this is Weston Hale. We worked together briefly at Goldman Sachs," Marcus introduces. Weston extends his hand with a smile that transforms his usually serious face. "The pleasure's mine. I hope you don't mind the interruption." "Not at all," Tamika responds, suddenly self-conscious. There's something about Weston's intense gaze that makes her feel exposed, as if he can see right through her charade. "Marcus always had excellent taste. I can see that hasn't changed," Weston comments. The comment hangs in the air as Weston returns to his table, leaving Tamika staring after him with a strange flutter in her chest. 2 hours earlier, Tamika was standing before her closet, staring at the black dress hanging on the door when her phone rang. Tam, just meet him for dinner. If you hate it, you never have to see him again, Tasha said through the phone. I haven't dated anyone since Derek. 2 years, Tasha. What if I'm not ready? Then you'll know, but hiding in your apartment isn't going to tell you anything. After hanging up, Tamika zips up the dress and makes her fateful decision. Now the dinner winds down, and Marcus has been unfailingly kind despite Tamika's increasingly desperate attempts to disgust him. The waiter approaches with a note on elegant stationery. Marcus, consider this repayment for the Tokyo project. Miss Harris, your insights on contemporary African art are more valuable than you realize. Tamika's eyes widen. She searches for Weston's table. Empty. How did he know about our conversation? And how did he know your last name? Tamika didn't know how to respond and just kept mute. It was then Marcus stood up, ending the date. One should know when to stop, he said with a smile that made Tamika instantly regret her obvious effort of making herself unappealing. Marcus hails a taxi for Tamika, as the evening has left them both unsettled. I had a nice time tonight despite, well, whatever was happening. Marcus, I should explain, Tamika begins, ashamed. No need. For what it's worth, even with the creative makeup choices, you couldn't hide how remarkable you are. As the taxi pulls away, Marcus leans in through the window. One thing. I've known successful people long enough to recognize when someone's paying very close attention. Be careful. He warned and backed away. As the city lights blur past, realization dawns on Tamika's face. The luxury car, the tinted windows, the way Weston seemed to know so much. Oh my God, she whispers to herself. He must have been in the car. At the same time in Weston's penthouse, floor-to-ceiling windows reveal the city sprawling below. Weston stands silhouetted against the view, a business card in his hand. Tamika Harris, Senior Curator, Metropolitan Museum of Contemporary Art, he says to himself. For the first time in years, Weston feels genuinely curious about another person. Tomorrow, he decides, he'll visit the museum. The morning light filters through the museum's skylights as Tamika moves through the gallery, making final adjustments to the Fractured Reflections exhibition. She stops before Kwame Asante's mirror installation, a complex arrangement that creates infinite reflections of family photographs, representing the fragmented sense of identity in the diaspora experience. Extraordinary work, a voice says behind her. Tamika freezes. That voice. She turns slowly. Weston stands a few feet away, dressed in a perfectly tailored navy suit. In the bright gallery lighting, she can see the sharp intelligence in his dark eyes, the slight curl to his black hair. Mr. Hale, the museum isn't open to the public yet. I spoke with the director, mentioned I was interested in acquiring pieces for my corporate collection. I see. Is there a particular style you're drawn to? Tamika asks, professional but wary. I'm particularly interested in Asante's work. After hearing your analysis last night, I wanted to experience it myself. The acknowledgement that he'd been listening, eavesdropping, hangs between them. About last night, I think we both know I used your car window as a mirror without realizing you were inside. I apologize, apology accepted, though I have to admit, it was rather entertaining. What I'm curious about is why someone would deliberately make themselves look. Weston pauses with the hint of a smile. Unconventional. Like a disaster? Tamika fills in. I was going to say unconventional. Tamika sighs, deciding honesty might be her best defense. I was trying to sabotage the date. I didn't want to be there, but I didn't want to hurt Marcus by canceling. So I thought if I looked terrible enough, he'd end the evening early. To her surprise, Weston laughs, a rich, genuine sound. That's brilliant problem solving. Ineffective as it turned out, but brilliant. Marcus was annoyingly decent about the whole thing. He always was a good man. Which makes me even more curious. Why didn't you want to be on the date? They've been walking slowly through the gallery as they talk, stopping now before a large canvas of vibrant reds and golds. Because adequate isn't enough anymore. Not after. Tamika says quietly, not finishing the sentence, but Weston hears the pain beneath the words. After? Why are you really here, Mr. Hale? Surely not just to discuss my dating disasters, Tamika deflects. Have dinner with me. The request is so abrupt, so unexpected that Tamika blinks. What? A real dinner, not a sabotaged one. Why? Because in 15 years of business dinners and charity galas, I've never seen anyone approach a problem the way you did last night. It was refreshingly honest, even if the execution was unorthodox. So this is professional curiosity? Let's call it personal curiosity. Tamika studies his face, trying to read his intentions. I don't think I can promise not to use your car windows as mirrors. I'll try to park somewhere less tempting, Weston responds with that transformative smile. The restaurant is warm and intimate, exposed brick walls, wooden tables, the scent of garlic and herbs filling the air. Rosa Martinez, a silver-haired middle-aged woman, embraces Weston warmly. Weston, mi amor, it's been too long. Rosa, this is Tamika. Rosa appraises Tamika with sharp but warm eyes, then breaks into a smile. Welcome, chica. Any friend of Weston's is family here. She leads them to a corner table, partially secluded by a bookshelf filled with well-worn novels. The usual? Rosa asks. Please, for both of us, if Tamika trusts me to order. I'll take a leap of faith, Tamika says, raising an eyebrow. As Rosa disappears into the kitchen, Tamika looks around the cozy space. This isn't what I expected. What did you expect? Some exclusive club with a 10-year waiting list. Not this, which is wonderful, by the way. Rosa was my neighbor when I first moved to the city. I was 22, broke, and she'd bring me leftovers from the restaurant where she worked. When my company took off, helping her open this place was my first big splurge. This glimpse beneath his polished exterior surprises Tamika. That doesn't fit with your reputation. What reputation? The Ice King of Silicon Valley. Isn't that what Forbes called you? Most things that matter don't make it into press releases, Weston says wryly. Rosa returns with wine and fresh bread. As they eat, the initial awkwardness dissolves. Tamika finds herself talking about her work, her passion for elevating underrepresented artists, her vision for making art accessible beyond traditional elite spaces. Art should challenge us, make us uncomfortable sometimes, force us to confront truths we'd rather ignore. Like Asante's work, using reflections to show how identity fractures and reforms through cultural displacement, Weston responds. Tamika pauses, bread halfway to her mouth. That's exactly what I was trying to express in the exhibition notes. Great minds. The food arrives. Fragrant paella, grilled seafood with herbs, roasted vegetables in a sauce Tamika can't identify but finds addictive. This is incredible. How is this place not packed every night? It usually is. Rosa closes to the public on Mondays for family dinner. She makes an exception for me occasionally. So we have the whole restaurant to ourselves? Something in her tone makes Weston study her face carefully. Is that okay? Yes, actually. It's nice not to worry about people staring and wondering what you're doing with someone like me, Tamika says after a moment. Someone like you? You know what I mean. I'm not exactly in your social circle. My social circle is overrated. Mostly people who want something from me or want to be seen with me. It gets old. The honesty in his voice touches something in Tamika. Is that why you're having dinner with the crazy lady who used your car as a vanity mirror? Weston sets down his fork, looking directly at her. I'm having dinner with you because in the 30 seconds I watched you transform yourself, I saw more authenticity than I've encountered in years of boardrooms and charity galas. The intensity of his statement leaves Tamika momentarily speechless. I'm sorry. That was too much, Weston adds. No, it's just, I'm not used to that kind of directness, Tamika says quietly. What are you used to? The question hangs between them. Tamika looks down at her hands. 2 years ago, I was engaged to someone I thought I knew. Derek. We'd been together for 3 years, planning this whole life together. Then I found out he'd been seeing his law firm's biggest client behind my back for 8 months. I'm sorry. The worst part wasn't the cheating. It was realizing I'd been invisible to him for so long. Like I was just background scenery in his real life. Weston reaches across the table, covering her hand with his. You could never be background scenery. Even with garish makeup and deliberate clumsiness? Tamika asks with a self-deprecating smile. Especially then. Do you know what I saw last night? Someone brave enough to make herself vulnerable, to look ridiculous, to protect herself in the only way she could think of. That takes courage. Their eyes meet across the small table, and something shifts between them. A recognition, an understanding. What about you? Ever been married? Tamika asks. Engaged once. Catherine. She was everything that looked good on paper. Harvard MBA, from the right family, knew how to navigate my world. What happened? I realized she was more in love with the idea of being Mrs. Weston Hale than with me. She wanted the lifestyle, the status. I was just the vehicle to get it. When was this? 3 years ago. Haven't been serious about anyone since. They sit in comfortable silence for a moment, processing these mutual revelations. Can I ask you something? Weston continues. Sure. If your friend hadn't set up that blind date, if you hadn't used my car window as a mirror, would we have ever met? Probably not. Different worlds, different circles, Tamika thinks. Then I owe your friend a debt of gratitude. Don't thank her yet. We've only had one dinner. Then I'll have to make sure it's memorable enough to earn a second one, Weston says with that smile that transforms his face. Their relationship bloomed after that first date, and they are almost everywhere together. Coffee dates at small cafes where they debate art and philosophy, walking through Central Park. Tamika pointing out sculptures while Weston shares stories of his Detroit childhood. Jazz clubs where they sit close with intertwined fingers. Tamika's apartment, cooking dinner together, and Weston awkward but eager in her kitchen. 3 months into their relationship, Tamika was at her station at the International Metropolitan Museum when she was summoned by Dr. Helena Cross, her supervisor. Tamika, darling, sit down. We need to discuss your trajectory here. Tamika settles into the chair across from Cross's imposing mahogany desk, immediately sensing the shift in atmosphere. The board has been asking questions about your relationship with Weston Hale, Cross continues, moving around the desk to perch on its edge. My personal life has nothing to do with my professional work, Tamika responds carefully. Cross leans forward, her hand briefly touching Tamika's knee. Oh, but it does, sweetie. Everything you do reflects on this institution, and right now you look like a gold digger who's using her position here to climb social ladders. Tamika's jaw tightens. That's completely inappropriate, Dr. Cross. What's inappropriate is how you've been flaunting this relationship. Cross's voice drops to an intimate whisper as she moves even closer. But I can protect you from the board's concerns. We just need to have a better understanding between us. The implication hangs heavy in the air. Tamika stands abruptly. I think we're done here. Sit down, Tamika. Cross's tone turns sharp. I'm not finished. You'll find your future here depends very much on how cooperative you choose to be. Tamika couldn't hear anymore and stormed out of his office in rage, loathing what she just heard with every fiber of her being. It was the exhibition night at the International Metropolitan Museum. The exhibition opening is in full swing, and Tamika moves through the crowd with confidence, discussing the artwork with collectors and critics. She wears a stunning emerald dress that complements her skin tone perfectly. She's deep in conversation with a prominent critic when she feels a familiar presence. Without turning, she knows Weston has arrived. When she does look, her breath catches. He stands in the entrance, commanding in a perfectly tailored black suit, but his eyes are only for her. Excuse me for just a moment, Tamika tells the critic. She makes her way to Weston, aware of the attention their reunion draws. You look radiant, Weston says. Thank you, I'm glad you could make it, Tamika responds, kissing his cheek. This is extraordinary, Tamika. Truly groundbreaking work, Weston says, surveying the exhibition. They move through the gallery together. Tamika is in her element, sharing the stories behind the works, connecting artists with potential collectors. Weston listens attentively, asks thoughtful questions, and seems genuinely moved by the art. But Tamika notices the change in the room's dynamic. Collectors who had been hesitant are now showing keen interest. Critics who might have been dismissive are paying attention. The Weston Hale effect is undeniable. During a quiet moment by the bar, Dr. Helena Cross approaches Tamika with barely concealed excitement. Tamika, this is our most successful opening in years, and having Weston Hale here. The board is ecstatic. The success is because of the quality of the work and the artist's vision, Tamika responds carefully. Of course, but connections matter in this world. You've done very well for yourself. The implication makes Tamika's stomach tighten, but she maintains her composure. If you'll excuse me, I should check on the artists. As the evening winds down and the crowd thins, Tamika stands before Asante's mirror installation, the piece that had sparked her first real conversation with Weston. Reflecting on the evening? Weston asks, approaching from behind. In more ways than one, Tamika says, turning to him. Something in her tone makes him study her face. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. The exhibition is a success. The artists are happy. Critics seem impressed. But Dr. Cross made a point of mentioning how having you here benefits the museum. Other people have been whispering all night. About us? About whether my success is my own or reflected success. Weston is quiet for a moment, understanding the deeper issue. What do you need from me? I don't know. Maybe some space to figure out who I am professionally without the shadow of who you are. The words hit Weston harder than expected, but he nods slowly. I understand. Take whatever time you need. I'm not breaking up with you. I just need to prove to myself, and maybe to the world, that I can succeed on my own terms, Tamika says, touching his arm. Then that's what you'll do, and I'll be here when you're ready, Weston responds, covering her hand with his. Inside Tamika's apartment later that night, she sat on her couch, staring at her laptop screen. A blank document titled Letter of Resignation glows in the darkness. Her phone buzzes with a text from Tasha. Saw the photos from tonight. You two looked amazing together. Another text, this one from her sister. Mom saw you on the society pages. She's over the moon. Then one from Weston. Whatever you decide, I believe in you. Always. Then she begins typing, replying everyone. Thank you, and I love you for understanding me. She sent to Weston. Without words, Weston understood what was being asked and took a break. His heart longed for her, but there goes his brain encouraging him to wait it out. She deserved that much, he kept muttering to himself. Tamika sat across in his office the next day. He was calculative and stern while reading the resignation letter with a barely concealed shock. This is sudden, Tamika. Is this about last night? Did I say something? It's about me needing to build something of my own. Something that reflects my vision without question. You're making a mistake. This museum has given you everything. Prestige, resources, connections, Tamika stands. No, Dr. Cross. I've given this museum my expertise, my passion, and my credibility. Now I need to see what I can build with those things on my own. 2 days later, Tamika stands in a cavernous space in an empty warehouse she proposed for her own exhibition, sunlight streaming through high windows. Zoe, her former museum intern with bright eyes and eager energy, now turned secretary approaches with a clipboard. The lease is signed. We have 3 months to transform this place into something extraordinary. Bridge Gallery has a nice ring to it, don't you think? Tamika says. Bridging communities, bridging cultures, bridging the gap between art and accessibility. I love it. Tamika's phone suddenly rang. She almost didn't answer when she saw it was Weston, but their agreement was space, not silence. How's the new space? Weston's voice comes through, terrifying and perfect. Need anything? Actually, yes, but not money or connections, just belief that I'm doing the right thing. You have that, you've always had that. Tamika and Zoe were busy painting a partition board when Dr. Cross showed up at the warehouse unannounced. Impressive space, he said, surveying the work in progress. Very. Ambitious for someone starting over. Zoe looks between them uncertainly. Zoe, could you grab us some coffee? Tamika requested, not wanting a witness to whatever Cross was planning. Once they were alone, Cross's facade drops entirely. Did you really think leaving the museum would end our relationship? You're still very much dependent on the art world's good opinion, and I have a very loud voice in that world. He moved closer, backing Tamika against a paint-covered table. I can make sure no artist wants to show with you. No collector takes you seriously. No critic reviews your exhibitions. His hand trails down Tamika's arm. Or I can be your most vocal supporter. Your choice. Don't touch me, Tamika said firmly, but Cross ignored her. I've been patient, darling, more patient than you deserve. But patience has limits. Cross tried to kiss her, but Tamika shoved him away hard enough that he stumbled. You'll regret this, he snarled. I'll destroy you and your little boyfriend. One phone call to the right reporter about financial irregularities between you two, and both your reputations are finished. Unknown to both of them, Weston has arrived to surprise Tamika with lunch. He couldn't bear her absence any longer and wanted to use any means to catch a glimpse of the one his restricted heart desires. He was about to enter when he heard raised voices through the thin walls. I'll destroy you and your little boyfriend. The words stopped him cold. Through a grimy window, he could see Cross advancing on Tamika, who's pressed against a table with nowhere to retreat. The door bursts open with enough force to rattle the windows. Weston strode in, his face a mask of controlled fury. Get away from her. His voice was deadly quiet. but the threat was unmistakable. Cross turns, startled. "Weston, what a surprise. Tamika and I were just discussing." "I heard what you were discussing. I heard all of it." He moved to stand between Cross and Tamika, his body language protective but his attention focused on the old man. "You have exactly 60 seconds to get out of this building before I call the police." Cross straightened his suit, trying to regain his composure. "You're making a mistake. You don't understand the art world. Tamika needs my support if she wants to succeed." 30 seconds. "This isn't over," Cross hisses and headed for the door. After he left, Weston turned to Tamika, who's collapsed onto a paint-covered crate, shaking. "How long?" he asked gently. "Months, since 3 months into our relationship." The words come out in a rush. The inappropriate comments, the unwanted touching, the threats about their reputations, the financial irregularities accusations. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, confused. "Because everyone already thinks my success comes from being with you. If you rescued me from Cross, it would prove them right." Weston kneels in front of her, his hands carefully placed on the crate beside her, close but not touching until she's ready. "Your success has nothing to do with me. It never has. But this harassment, this threat to your safety, that has everything to do with me if someone's using our relationship to hurt you. I wanted to handle it myself. You shouldn't have had to. I'm sorry. I should have seen the signs." For the first time in months, Tamika allows herself to be held, melting into Weston's arms as months of suppressed fear and anger finally surface. After 3 months of cleaning, painting, lighting installations, artist visitations, and late nights planning, the warehouse has been transformed. The industrial space now pulses with life. Strategic lighting, movable walls, artwork that speaks to themes of identity, community, and belonging. A diverse crowd moved through the space. Not just art world figures, but community members, students, families. Tamika moved through them with quiet pride, wearing a dress designed by one of her featured artists. Near the entrance, she spotted a familiar figure, Weston, handsome as ever and composed, but with warmth in his eyes. He stood slightly apart from the crowd and dressed more casually than usual. Dark jeans, white shirt, and no tie. When their eyes met, he raised his glass in a small, private toast. "You came," Tamika says, approaching him. "I wouldn't miss seeing what you built. And what do you think?" "I think it's exactly what the world needs, and exactly what you were meant to create." They stand together, watching a group of teenagers from the local high school, discussing one of the installations with obvious engagement. "I missed you," Tamika admits. "I missed you too, but I'm proud of what you did, taking the space you needed. I proved something to myself, that my success isn't dependent on anyone else's influence. And now? Now I know who I am professionally, which means I can choose who I want to be personally." She turns to face him fully, her hand finding his. "I choose you, Weston, not because I need you, but because I want you. Because we're better together than apart." Weston's composed exterior melted into vulnerability and cupped her face gently. "I love you, Tamika Harris. Independent, stubborn, brilliant you. I love you too. Ice King, secret, romantic you." Their kiss, surrounded by the art she's chosen and the community she's built, feels like a homecoming. Weston refused to let Dr. Cross off and had contacted the police of his professional misconduct after the warehouse episode. And Cross was charged with sexual harassment and assault. Now in prison attire after being convicted, Cross sat across from Catherine Morrison, Weston's ex-girlfriend of 3 years, through a glass partition. They speak through phones. "You want revenge against Tamika Harris, and I want Weston back," Catherine says with cold determination. "I have resources, connections, and a very compelling story about how a naive curator manipulated powerful men." Cross leans forward eagerly. "I have documentation, photos taken out of context, financial records that could be interpreted in interesting ways. Perfect. People love a good scandal about ambitious women who seduce their way to the top. The Bridge Gallery has become a thriving cultural hub." Tamika reviews plans for the upcoming Mirrors of Identity exhibition with Zoe. Her phone buzzes with multiple notifications, social media alerts, news notifications, text messages. The first headline she sees makes her blood run cold. "Art World Scandal. Curator's web of seduction and manipulation exposed." At the same time, in Weston's office, he reviews the same articles on his tablet. His assistant brings him printed copies from various publications. The articles paint a coordinated picture, Tamika as a manipulative social climber who used sexual relationships with both Cross and Weston to advance her career. Photos show her in what appeared to be intimate moments with Cross. Financial documents suggest suspicious money transfers, and anonymous sources provide damning quotes. Tamika reads the articles with growing horror. Every photo is taken out of context, every quote twisted, every financial transaction made to look suspicious. "It's all lies," she whispers to Zoe. Every word is taken out of context or completely fabricated. Weston arrives to find reporters camped outside the gallery. Inside, Tamika is surrounded by newspapers and printouts, each containing variations of the same story. "We'll fight this," he says immediately. "My lawyers are already working on—" "No." Tamika's voice is flat, defeated. "Look at this." She shows him a second article. "Tech mogul's romantic pattern. Does Weston Hale have a type?" The piece draws connections between Catherine, described as accomplished but ultimately seeking lifestyle advancement, and Tamika, painted as ambitious curator with expensive tastes. It suggests Weston is attracted to women who want to use him for social and financial gain. "They're trying to destroy both of us," Tamika realizes. "Make me look like a gold digger and make you look like a fool who keeps falling for the same type of woman. I don't care what they say about me. But I do. Don't you see? This proves everything I was afraid of. Even when I try to build something on my own, it gets turned into a story about how I'm using people." The crisis deepens over the next few days. Potential exhibitors start withdrawing from the gallery's opening. Board members from Tamika's former museum colleagues distance themselves. Collectors who had shown interest suddenly become unavailable. Tamika and Weston sat in tense silence after another day of damage control, and the distance between them felt like a chasm. "Maybe we should take a break," she said finally, "until this dies down." "Absolutely not." Weston wasn't ready to go through that again. Not for these lies. "Weston, every day we're together, every photo of us, it feeds the story. Makes things worse? So we let them win? We let Cross and Catherine destroy what we have?" "What if they're right?" The words come out broken, barely audible. "What if I am just like Catherine? What if I have been using you without even realizing it?" Weston moves to kneel in front of her chair, his hands covering hers. "Look at me, you are nothing like Catherine. You've never asked me for money, never pushed for social connections, never tried to change me to fit your vision of what a boyfriend should be. You fell in love with me despite my wealth, not because of it. But the gallery you're building with your own savings, your own connections, your own vision. I offered to help and you said no, remember? The exhibition opening costs are being covered by ticket sales and private donations you secured yourself. I haven't given you a penny for this project because you wouldn't let me." The truth in his words starts to penetrate her despair. Then why does everyone believe the stories? Because lies that confirm people's prejudices are easier to believe than complex truths. But the people who matter, the artists working with you, Zoe, Marcus, Rosa, they know who you really are. The next day, Weston went to his attorney's firm. David Chen, Marcus's older brother and Weston's attorney, spread surveillance photos across his conference table. The images show Catherine and a prison visitor meeting multiple times. "Our private investigator has been busy. We have documented proof that Catherine Morrison has been coordinating this campaign with Cross from prison. Bank records show significant payments to tabloid photographers and journalists." He pulls out another set of documents. "More importantly, we have the original, unedited photos. They tell a very different story." The real photos show Cross leaning over Tamika inappropriately while Tamika tries to pull away, looking distinctly uncomfortable. In another, Cross has cornered Tamika against her desk while Tamika's body language screams distress. There's more. We have prison phone records of conversations between Cross and Catherine discussing strategy, including this interesting exchange where they discuss destroying the Harris woman's credibility before Hale realizes what's happening. Jonathan Blackwell, the magazine's editor, looks increasingly uncomfortable when approached in his office as David presents the evidence. His connection to some of the sources is becoming clear. "This puts us in a very difficult position," Blackwell admits. "It puts you in a position of having published libel based on fabricated evidence," David corrects. "Libel that has damaged both my clients' reputations and business interests. What do you want?" "Full retraction, public apology, and agreement to publish the true story with evidence of the conspiracy." Despite the scandal, The gallery opening proceeded 2 weeks later. The space pulses with energy as a diverse crowd moves through the Mirrors of Truth exhibition. Artwork that explores authenticity, perception, and the courage to show one's real self. The retraction and true story have been published, but rebuilding reputations takes time. Still, the people who matter are here: artists, community members, students, and supporters who believe in Tamika's vision. Weston arrived fashionably late, giving Tamika space to shine on her own first. When he does appear, he stayed in the background, letting her success speak for itself. Near the end of the evening, they find themselves alone by the centerpiece installation, a collaborative work that uses mirrors to show how individual stories connect to create a larger narrative. "I'm sorry I doubted us," Tamika says. "I let their lies get into my head. You had every reason to doubt. They were very convincing. But you didn't doubt us." "No, because I know you. I know your heart, your integrity, your strength. A few doctored photos couldn't change that." She moved closer, finally ready to close the distance she'd maintained during the crisis. What happens to Cross and Catherine now? Cross will face additional charges for conspiracy and defamation from prison. Catherine is facing civil charges for libel and conspiracy. Her social standing is, let's say, significantly diminished. Good. The vindication feels satisfying, but not as important as what comes next. Tamika took his hands. "Weston, I want to go to Detroit. I want us to build something together there, not because I need you to, but because I want to. Because we're better together than apart. Even if it's complicated, especially if it's complicated, we're good at complicated." As they kiss surrounded by mirrors that reflect infinite possibilities, Tamika thinks about how love isn't about seeing yourself reflected in another person's status or wealth. It's about seeing yourself clearly in someone else's eyes. All your strengths and flaws, your independence and your need for connection, and choosing each other anyway. 1 year later, the Detroit satellite location of Bridge Gallery is celebrating its grand opening. The space buzzes with energy as local artists, community leaders, and national figures explore exhibitions that specifically celebrate Detroit's creative renaissance. Tamika moved through the crowd with confidence, discussing artwork and future plans. She wore a ring on her left hand, not flashy but meaningful, a custom piece featuring stones from both their hometown communities, designed by one of her Detroit artists. Weston appears at her side, proud but not possessive, supportive but not overwhelming. "Ready for the announcement?" he asked. Tamika nods, taking his hand as they move to the small stage. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began, her voice carrying easily through the space. Bridge Gallery has always been about building connections between artists and communities, between cultures and generations, between the stories we tell about ourselves and the stories others tell about us. She gestured to the art around them. "Tonight, we're excited to announce our next bridge, the Bridge Foundation, a nonprofit that will provide grants and mentorship to emerging artists from underserved communities. The foundation is being funded equally by Bridge Gallery's profits and the Hale Foundation, because some bridges are strong enough to carry more than one person's dreams." The applause was genuine and warm. In the crowd, she spotted Rosa, who made the trip from New York for the opening, beaming with pride. Later, as the crowd thinned and the cleanup began, Tamika and Weston stood before a new installation, another mirror piece. This one created by a young Detroit artist who explores themes of resilience and renewal. "No regrets?" Weston asked, studying their reflection in the fractured mirrors that somehow create a complete image. "About Detroit? About the gallery? About us? None. Even about that first night when you used my car window as a mirror?" Tamika laughed, the sound echoing in the space they've built together. "Especially not about that. Though I promise, no more emergency makeovers using reflective surfaces." "I don't know," Weston said, pulling her closer as their reflection multiplies in the artistic mirrors around them. "Some of my favorite discoveries have come from seeing you in unexpected reflections." "In that case," Tamika grinned, standing on tiptoe to kiss him, "let's see what other beautiful disasters we can create together." As they kissed, surrounded by art that celebrates the complexity of identity and the power of community, the mirrors reflected not just their image but their story, fractured and reformed through challenges, but ultimately stronger for having faced them together. If you enjoyed this story, kindly like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more. See you next time.